back here in the greatest city in the world, the traditional capital of the Americas and the Western Hemisphere, Mexico City. See, there's a lot going on in the street. Hopefully it'll be halfway quiet in here. Of course, a loud vehicle could drive by, or the barista could hit the grinder. I'm going to ask them to turn the music down. Joven, ¿podría bajar un poquito la música? Me van a multar si parece en mi emisión. Muy amable, gracias. All right. He'll turn it down a little for me. I ask a lot of these people. Okay, let me get out of the darkness and the... Fantastic. Listen, I've been doing a lot of shows about the IHOP-KC burn down, commenting on it, bringing some facts of the beginning of the movement, the growth of the movement, that it was not dead on arrival, that some really good things happened out of that movement in that place. Let me turn this just a little bit more. Hopefully it'll stay kind of... And listen, some critical details is there. I've done a lot of broadcasts on this, and so I have a playlist on the Gospel Gunslingers YouTube channel. I've also talked about it many times on my radio show, and so a lot of people come in, they see one video or part of a video, and they're missing 80% or 90% of the documentation of what I've compiled on this issue. So please look at that playlist. And today, we're going to talk about that the building collapsed that the original 24/7 House of Prayer was in. So I just ask you to dig a little bit. You know, I've got thousands of views on my last IHOP-KC video, and for about every 500 views, you know, I don't get credit for a view unless somebody actually watches most of it. I mean, they may leave it running on their TV and walk away, but that's an actual view, half or better of the video. So for about 500 views, so this is you, I get one comment out of about 500. And out of those comments, probably 3 out of 4 are negative, accusatory. They're generally people with anonymous accounts. They haven't even watched the whole video. Or some people are so nasty and corrupted that they'll watch 20 or 30 minutes of a video to nitpick on one little point. Like, oh, you got this date wrong. You know, I'm in another country. I'm telling a lot of things from experience and memory. And any witness on the court, on the witness stand in a court, they would have the same things. And sure, they could be questioned about it. Sure, they could be cross-examined about it. I'm not against that. But I got a lot of people that are just standing up to fight for their Virgin Mother. You know what I'm not getting? I'm not getting friends. I'm not getting followers. Oh, so 1 out of, I said 3 out of 4 are nasty. 1 out of 4. So 2,000 people have to watch my video for one person to come in and say, hey, thank you. This really helped me to understand some things. And that's the beginning of what I'm really looking for. I wonder if we're getting any result in that area. A lot of people are seeing it. Oh, and you know what definitely doesn't happen? Nobody goes and looks into my work. And again, the nasty comments, they're channels that... There's the big noise coming in. We'll have to deal with some of that because I'm out in public. Thank God I'm out of the jungle. You know, a lot of people thought that they'd bury me there. But we made it out. Praise the Lord. We're going to fight another day. So these anonymous channels, they don't even have any content. The people that say thank you, they've got a little channel where they talk about the things of God and their faith and their life. And so I'm getting I feel like I'm getting zero response of people looking into my work. You know, I've done 500 daily Bible lessons on self-defense and self-government. The first 99 are on YouTube. It's right on my Gospel Gunslingers channel. Howdy. Just take a look at it. It's called Bible Verse of the Day, VOTD, Verse of the Day for Gospel Gunslingers. They're 3, 4, 5-minute lessons. And I just kind of take some obscure and some very well-known Bible verses and say, hey, let's look at this in a different light. Let's look at this and see whether the founders of these nations, the United States and other nations, really were onto something when they discovered the Bible doctrines of self-defense and self-government. And of course, the antithesis of that is the sodomy and pacifism that's endemic in the church world. And so I have, forehead to forehead, horn to horn, confronted that on the IHOP-KC scandal, that the sodomy is everywhere, that the pacifism is everywhere. And the pacifist preachers, you know what they don't believe in? Lifting a finger to attack anybody, but they'll attack me. How about that? It's an oddity. It's strange. So please, if you're watching this, look into my work a little bit. Look at the places that I've been and the people that I've worked with and the books that I reference and the great works that I've had contact with and the great streams of Christianity that I'm proud to have in my own family tree, because this thing was not done in a corner and did not happen yesterday. I got a few verses I want to share. I also just put up on Twitter. So, you know, I just can't say enough how many people came in, see one part of a video, and they're like, what the heck is going on? The Bethany Deaton murder? Okay, the very first video that I did on the IHOP playlist when I came out of the shadows and cranked up my phone in Mexico, and in front of the Mexico map began to break down the IHOP-KC scandal, I referenced the Bethany Deaton murder of 2012. And I said, hey, how did anybody miss the point that this infection was deep, deep, deep within IHOP? That the tumor was bigger than the organism in 2012. It was 2 years after that Misty and Kevin Prosh hooked up. So it's not a shock when you go into the dirty, dirty water that people get sick. It's not a shock. Man, I'm glad I have a Turkish coffee from see, I'm in the big city. I can get anything. I can get my fresh breads, 8 pesos, man. I got had a huge cream roll with fresh whipped cream in it for breakfast. Yeah, 50 cents. Fantastic. They thought I'd never come back. They thought I'd never come back out of the jungle. I got a little Bible lesson too. I got my Bibles open. I studied it in Spanish this morning, so hopefully I can get everything wound down into English. But this has to do with myself being attacked. The fact that I've survived, this is a glory day. I'm just going to read one little thing from Psalm 35. I went to see my buddy this morning at 0700. He has his Bible open. I said, where you at? He said, Psalm 35. And I looked at it and I was just shocked. I almost fell out. And I said, that's the word of the Lord. Let them shout for joy and be glad that favor my righteous cause. Yea, let them say continually, let the Lord be magnified, which has pleasure in the prosperity of his servant. Let them be ashamed and brought to confusion together, them that rejoice at mine hurt. Publishing on these topics, I got thousands and thousands of people praying against me. That's witchcraft if you don't know. If you don't have a righteous cause, you're exercising your will and spending time and speaking out somebody's name, that they would be resisted. Let them be ashamed and brought to confusion together that rejoice at mine hurt. Let them be clothed with shame and dishonor that magnify themselves against me. Yeah, I'm back, baby. I'm back. I'm out of the jungle. I demonstrated everything there that needed to be demonstrated about how to be a missionary. I confronted the principalities and powers and came back. We'll come back to Psalm 35. Going to be a little bit noise. They're working over there in the kitchen. I apologize for that. This is the real world. It's real life. This Turkish coffee, there's grit in the bottom of it when you're done. It's like, yeah, it's powerful. I love it. Okay, so my friend Dennis Tarpon founded the original House of Prayer in Davenport, Iowa. And he did it just in an apartment that he rented. He worked a job as a machinist, had a little bit of cash to spare. He had a roommate. And right down across from the courthouse, and now I remember growing up that this was like, this is where the hookers used to stand. This is where the drug salesmen, people out jiving and being crazy in a town that did not really have that. They had it downtown, right across from City Hall, right across from the police station. If you go to Twitter, you can go to the gospelgunslingers.com site, hit the Twitter button, hit the little blue bird, take you right to my Twitter. Right up on there are all the maps of the building that collapsed. Or you can just go to Twitter and search Gospel Gunslingers, and it'll come up. Today I think is the 20th. Yeah, March 20th of 2024. So today's the day that that's up there. You can look at the BBC article of this building that collapsed. So it was world news. It went around the world that this building collapsed. And here's what, there were people in it that were buried alive. Some of them died. And here's what nobody knows about this building. It's where Brother Dennis Tarpon set up the original House of Prayer. They had divine healings. They had angelic visitations. And it went on for years. And then it was people that he discipled that went to Kansas City, started attending Metro Church, and put the idea in the head of a young preacher named Mike Bickle. Hey, we were part of a 24-hour house of prayer. It was so simple. It was so easy. All we did is worship the Lord, had the door open. We had a group of about 200 young people that would just stop by day or night, enter into the Lord's presence. We had canned worship playing, or they'd shut it off and bust out the guitar. That's how it began. That's where it began. Here's my point. On May 29th of 2023, the building fell down. And this is world news. And I heard about it because it's in my hometown, right? So I called Brother Dennis and I said, hey, is this where you had your house of prayer? And he goes, well, down there on the one-way. And I said, and it just I wanted to know, right? So that I drew up these maps. And this is what you'll see on the Twitter is the maps, the street view of here's the street, here's the city hall, here's the police station, and here's the old tenement, and that's the building that collapsed. And he goes, that's it, man. That is it. And so we were just kicking around. What could this mean? What could this mean? Well, it meant that, and listen, when I broadcast on it that week, and the show it's the Living by the Sword radio show, my show that airs through all Latin America, North and South America, if you've got a shortwave set, unless you live in an underground doomsday bunker, in which case you should really have a shortwave antenna. In the USA and most all Latin America, you can get it on the shortwaves, but there's also an archive button at gospelgunslingers.com that'll take you to one archive. The Telegram archive is in the tweet, so you can listen to my hour-long radio show where I talk about works getting judged and sucked in the earth, and that this is where IHOP Kansas City's roots came from, where it originated. So that's just an interesting plus. Everybody's talking about IHOP-KC, and I'll tell you that of the 5,000 people that watch my video, probably not one of them knows that the roots of the movement came from Davenport, Iowa, in that building that collapsed on May 29th, 2023. The whole world's talking about it, like how, why, how, maybe. And this is even in the radio broadcast. Maybe the Lord is pulling the plug on some mighty works around the world. Bonito dia. some Europeans. There's people here from all over the world. There's over 100 consulate representations in this city. I can bless the president, the Christian president of Mexico from here. It's a beautiful thing. All right, so let's look at the word a little bit. Oh, the last thing that nobody did is sent me a donation. You know, I'm a refugee. That's why I can tell you these things. That's why I can preach the Living by the Sword program and my No Holds Barred segment, is because I'm outside of the United States. And I've been all these places. Somebody accused me and said, you weren't there in 2012. Yeah, I was. I just wasn't so buried inside of the movement with all the other finger-licking sycophants that the Bethany Deaton murder escaped me. Yeah, I saw it in the Kansas City Star and the regional news. I was around, very around in 2009, 10, and 11. And by 2012, I was asking the people that were still there, why are you still here? And then Bethany Deaton got murdered. That video, which is the first one with the Mexico map behind me on the IHOP-KC scandal playlist, sex scandal, IHOP-KC sex scandal playlist, has all the news links. But any modern millennial, no matter how dumb, can type into their search engine, crawl up on the web, Bethany Deaton murder. There's an hour-long television news magazine that did, sent a team to research the Bethany Deaton murder and how Tyler Deaton got off and how the confession of the murderer was thrown out of court and how they got off and all of the weirdness that was involved, including all of those men having sex with one another and the head of the all-male sex house. Kansas City, yes. That he was the leader of the sex cult. IHOP-KC tried to distance themselves from it immediately. Listen, it was elders from IHOP-KC that drove the murderer to the police station after he confessed to the murder to them. There's no getting around. There's no sweeping it under the rug. All right. So nobody sent me any donations, nobody partnered, nobody looked into my work. And this is what I have to deal with, is the reproach. This is the reproach of the gospel. But it'd be nice to make some friends out of this, and this is what the psalmist says. Let them shout for joy and be glad that favor my righteous cause. Praise God. All right. Verse 1 of Psalm 35. Plead my cause, O Lord, with them that strive with me. Fight against them that fight against me. I wasn't going to start here. I have something else on my heart from 1 Samuel. And in 1 Samuel, something really interesting happens. There's an opportunity to make peace, right? Yeah. And what is the condition? Yeah, I'm going to have to look at this in my Spanish Bible. So the time of the judges had really sundown. Samuel was the last judge. Many commentators say he appointed his sons judges, but then they walked not after the Lord, and they took bribes. And so the nation was in oppression. The Ark of God had been defeated a number of times. And the Lord listens to the prayer of the people and raises him up a king. And when the Lord established that king, a lot of interesting things happened. Let's look at the end of chapter 10 first. Verse 26, and Saul went home to Gibeah, and there went with him a band of men whose hearts God had touched. But among them, there were children of Belial, idolaters, right? Sodomites. Here we go. But the children of Belial said, how shall this man save us? And they despised him. That's me, guys. That's me. That's all the hate that I've been bearing for 10 weeks, marooned in the jungle, and have survived. But the children of Belial said, how shall this man save us? And they despised him and brought him no presents, but he held his peace. All right, I'm telling you. What's next? You know, the Spanish said, lo tuvieron en poco. They saw him of little worth. All right. Then the people don't really believe for deliverance. So I'm going to skip around just a little bit. This is in chapter 13 and verse 7. And they don't really believe that God's going to deliver them. They have been oppressed for so long, and generations have come up in oppression. They just believe that the Philistines were going to trample on them forever. And so here we see in verse 7, 13 and 7, as for Saul, he was yet in Gilgal, and all the people followed him trembling. They were really scared. They only just partly and barely believed that God would really bring deliverance. I'm going to bring this a little bit closer to me, and maybe it'll stay a little more constant. Sorry, and my devices are all really old. Yay! There's horns honking. There's noises other than the jungle and indecipherable Indian languages, because I've been listening to that. Okay, this is the verse that I really wanted to begin with. This is 1 Samuel 11:2. And this is the first battle that Saul engages in, because he had just gone home to Gilgal. They hadn't really done anything. Maybe the one of him and Jonathan was before. I don't think so, though. I think this is the first one. That vehicle will pass here shortly. Just stay with me. All right. A lot of, Psalm 133 is so overquoted. People talk about the unity bringing the blessing and God commanding a blessing, and it's a really erroneous doctrine because it encourages to accept the unacceptable, to accept the filth and the leaven that's within other people under the idea that then God will do some great thing. Not that our co-laborers have to be perfect or can be perfect, but when God, the whole idea of 24/7 prayer movements is seeking God and pursuing holiness, without which no man will see God. It's not letting in all the troublemakers. We cast the devils out. We push the bad guys out. All right, so here's what happens in 1 Samuel 11:2. So there was a city, Jabesh Gilead, and it was assaulted by the Ammonites. And they said, hey, we'll surrender, man, because they knew that they were overpowered. They said, we'll surrender. We'll make an accord with you. You just tell us what to do. And here's what the general says. And Nahash the Ammonite answered them, on this condition will I make a covenant with you, that I may thrust out all your right eyes and lay it for a reproach upon all Israel. And this is when they sent a message to Saul. They said, listen, this guy's going to put out all our eyes of the whole community, thrust out, or poke them out, our right eyes. And at that point, if he would have said something reasonable like, hey, you're all going to be our slaves, they would have probably gone along with it. But thrusting out their right eye, they said, you know what? Let's fight. Let's stand up and fight. Let's not accept that. And this is the opposite of this doctrine that's held the charismatic world together for decades, which is you have your right eye thrust out. You enter in to the sodomy. You enter into the culture of homoeroticism and effeminacy. Listen, I really went hard against effeminacy on this week's radio show, number 80. It's worth a listen if you're interested. Some other guys on Twitter were talking about how the modern worship is so effeminate, and that's why many men don't get into it. And then women criticize men and say, hey, you're really not working very hard towards God. They're like, this is kind of homoerotic and weird. And I posted and said, hey, you may want to listen to my radio show, week number 80, because I talked about this and how I had a battle with the preacher in the jungle. Because after listening to 7 hours of constant worship on the road, and I was falling asleep, I'm supposed to be his co-pilot, watching for speed bumps out there, which are totally unmarked. They sneak up on you. You hit a speed bump going 50 miles an hour, it's a bad deal. So he's like, hey man, you got to wake up. And I said, well, you could turn this music off because it's very hypnotic. You want me to be alert? Let's not play that. And he's like, this is worship? This is edifying? And I talked all about that on the show. And I said all of it comes from one source. There's one fuente, there's one fountainhead that this comes from, this style. IHOP Kansas City. And I'm in the middle of a horrible battle with them that goes back years. And I've lost a lot of friends over it, and it's cost me greatly because I refuse to have my right eye put out. But you know what the nasty commentators say? You can't see nothing. Maybe I don't see what you see out of your weak eye. All right. Let's fight instead of having our right eye put out. That's all I wanted to share from there. But let's look at Psalm 35 because this is really the word of the Lord for today. And I told my friend, he's not even a holy roller. He's like basically a Baptist. But he's disciplined. When you show up at 7 o'clock in the morning, the Bible is there open. And this is my battle with the church, the charismatic church world of today, and with Torben Sondergaard, is that people are taught to be undisciplined in these movements. They're taught to be undisciplined. I know they all think they're doing the opposite, but maybe not. All right, let's look at Psalm 35. It says, take hold of the shield. It's kind of funny because the last part of this car that we've had completely apart, probably spent 50 or 60,000 pesos, didn't have a dime. And here we get marooned in the jungle. I mean, in the middle of nowhere. The last thing that we didn't have put on, because the mechanic was too drunk, and it was buried under a bunch of junk in the back seat, is a heat shield. And so the lawyer's been really concerned about the heat shield. It's like, Sam, we need to put on the heat shield. It's there for a purpose. The engineers put that there. And I'm thinking to myself, it was so dangerous that it was the mode like Grandpa flying his heavy bomber. He used to come back with blown up engines all the time. Cannon shells through engines, flak shrapnel in his ship. And man, if they put it down, if they didn't have the pop flares that they had wounded on board, this is why pilots say any landing you walk away from is a good one. You can be pretty hurt and still walk. So even if your body is busted, but you walked away, that was a good day. Anyhow, I said to the lawyer, yeah, we need to get it done, but once we get to a place of safety, we got to get back to the Mexico City. And so I open up to Psalm 35 today, and here's the second verse. Take hold of shield and buckler. I'm like, all right, buddy, let's put that shield on. Verse 1, plead my cause, O Lord, with them that strive with me. Fight against them that fight against me. Take hold of shield and buckler, and stand up for mine help. Draw out also the spear, and stop the way against them that persecute me. Say unto my soul, I am thy salvation. Let them be confounded and put to shame that seek after my soul. Let them be turned back and brought to confusion that devise my hurt. Now this is going to get really interesting in the coming verses, so let's take a breath and a sip of coffee. A lot of people think I am the antagonist because I speak out against this movement, because I'll finally walk away and undust my feet. because I will finally stop helping. I'll finally break fellowship with somebody after they stiffen their neck repeatedly. Ooh, that was some of the grit. So they'll tell you that I'm the bad guy and that I'm the antagonist. No, I'm the protagonist. I'm the one who said, how about you don't put out my right eye, and how about we slug it out? How about that? The angel of the Lord and the angel of the Lord. For those of you who are new, there is a very pronounced history of angelic visitations around my ministry, because it was around my predecessors, including Clayton Sonmore, who was the successor to William Branham, who did the groundbreaking teachings on angelic visitations and the presence of the host of heaven when there's divine deliverance, including gifts of healings. Not that it can't happen another way, not that the Holy Spirit can't do that. We all know that there are gifts of healings. That is a charismatic, it is a working of the Holy Spirit, 1 Corinthians 12. But there's also the example of the pool of Siloam, which was recently discovered. Let them be my enemies, right? Let them be as chaff before the wind, and let the angel of the Lord chase them. This is all of you anonymous YouTubers too, that send your little nasty messages. The angel of the Lord may chase you. You know, one preacher got crossways with me, and we should be the best of friends, but he had his bread buttered in a few places, and he wasn't ready to give up. So he decided we were going to fight. He was so mad about it that he took a sledgehammer and went and pounded the parking lot for an hour. I think I already talked about that. And this is a dear friend of mine. His whole town's only got one jail cell in it. And you know, they were telling me about this. There's only one jail cell and they never throw the bad guys in it. Nobody's ever in there. It's a real rarity. And in a town that's running with hot and cold running cartel members, right? Like there's no shortage of gangsters. They went and got him, came to the church, cuffed him, and took him and threw him in that jail cell. Imagine the political power that his old lady, his buchona, his wife of many years and the mother of his children, that decided to convert, leave the gospel, become a hooker, become a guys and dolls gangster girl, run with drug dealers. His kids have to watch her jump into bed, go into the room with man after man after man of the nastiest and most tattooed, wickedest people in the city. But see, she got hooked that way into the political power structure, and she got it done. She got him cuffed and put in the one jail cell in the town that never has anybody in it. But I would tell you that she didn't even do that. The angel of the Lord did that, because he stood up against me and devised my hurt. Hopefully he'll quit doing that. Maybe he'll survive and we'll be friends and brothers again. Let their way be dark and slippery, and let the angel of the Lord persecute them. You want the armies? You know, Joshua met the captain of the armies of the Lord. Some say this was a Christophany. It was the angel. Joshua says, "Are you for us or for our enemies?" And he says, "Neither. But as captain of the Lord's host, I'm now come." So he was warning Joshua, don't screw up, or I'll fight against you. And you know, the Lord told Moses the same thing. Don't provoke. I'll send my angel before you to deliver you, but don't provoke him, because my name is in him. And when people, according to Hebrews 13:2, are hospitable and they harbor angels unawares, they need to be very careful to not provoke the armies of heaven, because the angel of the Lord will persecute them. Verse 7, and why? For without cause have they hid for me their net in a pit, which without cause they have digged for my soul. So here's the psalmist saying, why do they have to start trouble with me? Why they set a trap for me? They went way out of their way to set a trap and make it all look normal. Think this didn't just happen to me in the Chiapas jungle? It did. It did. This part of Mexico is so dangerous. I was not even going to go there. But I've been praying about going for a year. I thought I'll just peek in. And it was the will of the Lord. But we wound up with a tiger by the tail. And those troublemakers, verse 8, what happens to him? Let destruction come upon him at unawares. An attack will come against them suddenly. Let his net that he hath hid catch himself into that very destruction. Let him fall. This is nice. And you need to know this is a part of my heart. It's not about just trampling down the wicked. And my soul shall be joyful in the Lord. It shall rejoice in his salvation. I'm happy to be back in the city of my home, to bless my Christian president. And all my bones shall say, Lord, who is like unto thee, which deliverest the poor from him that is too strong for him? Yea, the poor and the needy from him that spoileth him. I'm a very small person, if you don't know. All you girls watching, you're all taller than me, just so you know. I could probably press you over my head, but yeah, you're all taller than me. False witnesses did rise up. They laid to my charge things that I knew not. They rewarded me evil for good, to the spoiling of my soul. Yeah, you know, David went to a lot of people and offered them peace. He sent messengers out. When his friend, the neighboring king, died, he sent messengers and said, hey, go greet the king's son who's king in his place, and tell him that his father and I were friends, and that we need to be friends today. And that king shaved off half their beards and cut their robes off so that their butt cheeks were hanging out in the breeze, and sent them out on the road that way. This is what David's talking about. That he went and extended friendship and offered terms of peace, reasonable terms of peace to other people. And they were like, no, hell no, let's go. Now this is where this really gets interesting. Because this part of the psalm, I never related to until now. They rewarded me evil for good, to the spoiling of my soul. I understood as a young man how we can get into a terrible scrape with an enemy. What I did not understand is mine own familiar friend lifting up his heel against me. And this is what David talks about. How he prayed for these people. And this is what I've done for the Hop, for KC, for Mike Bickle, for Torben Sondergaard, and for a million other people that are off the rails and have been for a long time. I've stood in intercession for them. I've tried to bind up their wounds. Here the psalmist tells of that. They rewarded me evil for good, to the spoiling of my soul. But as for me, when they were sick, my clothing was sackcloth. I humbled my soul with fasting, and my prayer returned into mine own bosom. Yes, it's the house of prayer. And that's a whole other scandal, is that they were sued by the International House of Pancakes for stealing their trademark. And they settled out of court, which means they probably paid a lot of money and promised to not call themselves IHOP anymore. And everybody just forgot about it. But the scandal went around the world. So yeah, we're talking about the International House of Prayer, Kansas City, which is burning to the ground right now. All right, David prayed for these other people when he stood up for them when they were sick. Let's go on. I behaved myself as though he had been my friend or brother. I bowed down heavily as one that mourneth for his mother. And in this case, with these people, I've actually done that, especially with Torben Sondergaard. But in mine adversity, they rejoiced. Oh yeah, Him and all his people were just happy as clams that I couldn't get back to Mexico City, and I was stranded in the jungle and surrounded by enemies. Killers! I'm back, baby. I'm back. But in mine adversity they rejoiced and gathered themselves together. Yea, the abjects gathered themselves together against me, and I knew it not. They did tear me and ceased not. With hypocritical mockers and feasts they gnashed upon me with their teeth. Yeah, they're Christian gatherings. They were all saying, we're going to get David, we're going to get this guy. And all this happened to me in these weeks. And the psalmist says, Lord, how long wilt thou look on? He says, Lord, are you just going to watch? Are you going to pick up your sword and shield and your spear and knock the hell out of them? O Lord, how long wilt thou look on? Rescue my soul from their destructions, my darling from the lions. I will give thanks in the great congregation. I will praise thee among much people. Let not them that are mine enemies wrongfully rejoice over me, neither let them wink with the eye that hate me without a cause. They don't have a cause to hate me, other than the fact that I haven't let them put out my eye, other than the fact that I have not entered into their sodomies and the disgustingness of their spots and their love feasts. That I haven't kicked it with all the reprobates. For they speak not peace, verse 20, but they devise deceitful matters against them that are quiet in the land. You know, I've been pretty quiet in the land. That's why I'm here, so that I can live openly and peacefully. Walk down the street. Verse 21, without getting assaulted by anarchists. It's happened so many times. Yea, they opened their mouth wide against me and said, Aha, aha, our eye hath seen it. This thou hast seen, O Lord. Keep not silence. O Lord, be not far from me. You know, that's the Sniper Jackson's, one of his favorite verses in Saving Private Ryan. Be not far from me, O Lord. Shoot the Germans dead. Stir up thyself and awake to my judgment, even unto my cause, my God and my Lord. Ask the Lord to get up and judge them, and he asks the Lord to judge him too, if there's a wicked way in him. Verse 24, judge me, O Lord my God, according to thy righteousness. Let them not rejoice over me. Have I not done right? You know, Job said the same thing. Have I not done right before you? If not, then I don't have a place to stand. And a lot of people are saying, hey, you don't cast the first stone. You know, I had a friend from Kansas City, had 3 different kids from 3 different women. And I was talking to him about this. And he said, he brought this up. You don't have room to talk. And I said, you see any of my kids running around with this or that woman? And he said, no. And I said, so I got room to talk. So I got room to talk. Because there's been a track record of many years of not causing those kinds of trouble. Of not being a part of that kind of iniquity. Verse 25, let them not say in their hearts, so would we have it. Let them not say, we have swallowed him up. See, everybody thought I was swallowed up in the wilderness. Yeah, but I'm back. Let them be ashamed and brought to confusion, together that rejoice at mine hurt. And this is so cool. Verse 27. You know, everybody's supposed to shout when Rocky gets up off the canvas, when Rambo's out of bullets, and he finally finds a way to put it on the enemy, and he gets up. Let them shout for joy and be glad that favor my righteous cause. Yea, let them say continually, let the Lord be magnified, which hath pleasure in the prosperity of the servant. Hey, come visit me on my website, gospelgunslingers.com. Look at the body of my work, where we have unveiled these mysteries for many years. I didn't have to do this. I could have just been a jungle preacher. The Lord asked me to re-enlist when I was home free and to get on Google and to start laying the foundations of these doctrines. You know, if somebody really wanted to cause trouble, they could actually look into my teachings. You know, somebody got on and said, "Oh, you call yourself Pastor Sam." You know what? There's a lot of reasons that I do that. Someone who followed my work would know what they are, and who bestowed those monikers. Yes, it's daylight, and it's a beautiful evening. We're on Mountain Time. Some of these buildings are centuries old. We're kind of in a backwater, Mexico City. This is the central district. This is the historic district, so it's where the oldest buildings are. I forgot what I was saying. I'm watching for comments, you know. I do these broadcasts live partly because I don't have the data or the time to crunch it all together. I do that one time a week for the radio show. It takes me about 40 hours to put that 1 hour broadcast together and load it up. But I'd ask you to consider being friends. And what I tell people on my radio show is I want to be your pastor and I want to be your missionary. This is what I was saying. I did not have to come out of obscurity. I could have been a jungle preacher forever. I could have gone back into my field in construction and found a home in this nation doing that. No, I risked everything again to broadcast, to teach on self-defense and self-government, because like in the time of Samuel, they're lost. Those values are lost. The USA has been oppressed for so long. You know, we've had like 3 generations of millennials now. And this is why, even when a great leader like Saul rises up, the people that follow him trembling. They only just barely believe that they're really going to make it out of that they can really stand up. Yeah, you can really stand up. You're going to see the Lord crush some of my enemies very quickly because they haven't got me. All right, friends, let's see if there's anything else that I marked when I was reading this in Spanish. Injustamente son mis enemigos. Me aborrecen sin causa. Guiñen el ojo. Thanks for coming out. PTSD. God bless. Thanks for coming out. Come visit me on gospelgunslingers.com. Lift a finger and click that button. And if you really want the blessing of God, lift the finger and put in your credit card number when you click that button. You know, I feed a lot of hungry kids. God bless you guys.